Hello, Daphne here, a total and complete lover of world travel. In this video, I have created some slides of some of my very favorite trips, but there have been so many. After all, I have visited over 50 countries. I've taken my kids lots of places, and now my grandkids. My husband and I have had some of the most magical trips. But one thing I can say for sure, and that is travel is in my bones, and I love every second of it. My husband teases me because oftentimes when we land back in the United States and I hear a speaker come out over the public address system and say, "All aboard, last call for the flight to Paris," or "Last call for the flight to Shanghai." I don't care where it is. All I want to do is turn around and run and get on that plane. But in this video, I will just show you a few of the trip highlights where we've just had so much fun. The first picture is dancing in the streets of Buenos Aires. The people in Argentina are so friendly. And we were just walking down the street and there was this parade of people. And they came and picked us out of a crowd and said, "Come dance with us." So there we were, and one tourist just grabbed my camera and started taking pictures. And this was such a fun couple of minutes as we danced with these crazy folks with the inside-out umbrella and the tie stuck high in the air as though the wind were blowing, in huge gusts like in a hurricane. But anyway, we loved Argentina. What a special place and what great people. Next up is another trip, absolutely fabulous trip. This was my graduation present to my oldest granddaughter, Derry. We went off to Ireland. Actually, her father's Irish, so she felt like she was going back to her roots. And we had the most fabulous time. Here we are at the Muckross house in Killarney, jumping for joy. And that is the perfect description of our trip together. We had the best time, and I loved every second of being with my granddaughter. And when I look back on these pictures, they are just such treasures. They remind me of how close and how much fun we have when we're together. And that makes me feel like the very luckiest Grammy in the entire world. Okay, next is my youngest granddaughter's trip. We had a grandmother-granddaughter trip to Italy over Christmas and New Year's. And it was a blast from beginning to end. Lily was absolutely the most wonderful traveling companion. And we took pictures of her looking like a model in front of the Trevi Fountain, in front of the Mediterranean Sea, in Cinque Terre, in Venice, all over the place. But this picture was in Cinque Terre, and Lily loved all the colorful houses along the Italian Riviera, and me too. Anyway, I, here again, felt like the world's happiest, most fortunate Grammy to have spent this time with Lily alone halfway around the world. Next up is a fun time my friend Carol and I had together in Sri Lanka. This was an all-girls trip. And one of the things I loved about traveling with Carol is that she was just up for anything. And we had an absolute blast together. So we were driving along in some, place in the middle of nowhere in northern Sri Lanka, and we saw this big sign that said elephant rides. So both of us, we looked at each other and we said, okay, we got to do that. So off we went on top of this big elephant for a ride out in the wilderness. And was that ever a lot of fun. Unfortunately, my dear friend Carol passed away this past January, and I can tell you for sure I am going to miss her spirit and all the fun we had together. She was such a wonderful traveling companion. I love you, Carol. Next up is Brazil's Pantanal. Talk about an exciting trip. That was out into the wilderness. I mean, we were miles and miles away from any civilization. And we stayed in a floating hotel, and the whole purpose of the trip was to see jaguars. And the reason that we stayed in a floating hotel is that jaguars usually show their faces next to the water on the banks, and we saw a whole bunch of them, and what magnificent creatures those are. And to be out in the wilderness where we were removed from humanity was just an incredibly wonderful experience. And I just realized once again, I should say, how awesome is Mother Nature. How fortunate I felt to be able to take this absolutely amazing trip. Okay, moving on. We go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where my husband and I had a wonderful winter's vacation, spent a month or so out there, and we went on this husky dog sledding ride through the Teton Mountains. And talk about fun and spectacular scenery in combination. That's what it was. And of course, we loved the huskies. They were the friendliest. They loved pulling us. They just couldn't stop wagging their tails. We had the best time. And it was a unique experience. So if you ever get out to Jackson Hole or somewhere up in the mountains where they offer dog sledding, by all means, go take that ride. It is magical. All right, here we traveled all the way to China. Shanghai, China was where I was born, but this happens to be out in Guizhou province, which is southern China. It's the home of the Miao people. They are some of the most talented people in the world. The embroidery that they do is exquisite. You can't describe how exquisite it is. And it's an ancient art that's been passed down for generations. And the people there fear it'll come to an end because so many of the young people want to move into the big city for all the excitement that it affords. But anyway, what a treat to be way out in the middle of nowhere with these ethnic minorities that have so many incredibly special talents. Walking with elephants in the Okabanga Delta of Botswana. Well, here we were having lunch with one of them. These are elephants, because you never go up to an elephant out in the wilderness, no way. But these are elephants that were abused, that a man took in and brought them back to where they were no longer abused, and they were healthy, big, strong, healthy elephants. And we spent the day with them hearing all about what elephants do. And then we ended up having, right here you can see a picture of my husband and me lunching with an elephant. And talk about having a unique experience. That has to be way up there on the top of the list. But I'm one that absolutely loves African safaris. There's just nothing like them. They are magical. They are educational. They're entertaining. You get in touch with nature. You feel things that you never have felt before, seeing these magnificent beasts up so close. It's just too amazing to even describe in words, in my opinion. Okay, last but not least, one of my favorite countries in all the world is Bhutan. And this is a picture of me on the trek up to Tiger's Nest, a monastery that was built in the 17th century, with prayer flags flying in the background, a stopping off point on the hike to Tiger's Nest. I don't like hiking, especially up hills, but oh my goodness, was it worth it. How in the world they carried all those materials up to that high point on the cliff. I think it's 4,000 feet above the town below. And yet they built this magnificent monastery. What an amazing treat to see this ancient structure. So there you have it, a few of the highlights of my trips around the world. And I can't wait till I step on my next plane to go somewhere else that I have never been and feel the joy of excitement that I get and experience a whole brand new place somewhere on planet Earth. Oh, that makes me feel like by far the luckiest gal ever.